6:30, we call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum with Joe Huguenot being absent, and he will also be absent on Thursday evening, and Melissa's absent, but she plans to be here. She's doing something with enrolling dual credit or some such thing.
She's got a kid.
She has a son. This time we'll go through the regular board meeting agenda items. Dr. Randall.
The first agenda item, we're asking the board to approve Fulshire High School's dance team to travel to Orlando, Florida.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it supposed to be 2019?
For 2018.
Or is this next?
It's a year from.
It's for a year from now.
It's a year from now?
So they can start fundraising.
Yeah.
Okay, so that amount is going to be pretty set?
Yes, they go ahead and work with the, not travel agencies, but the groups that book these kind of tours, and they get an estimate of what it's cost, but they we recommend they get it approved at least a year out so they can have adequate
So
time
it's
to
frozen,
plan.
the amount? Okay, thank you.
Well, it's when you say frozen, that that doesn't necessarily mean that there may be some movement within it. So,
I just don't ever remember doing this for a whole year in advance.
but this is their first go around with
Is that
some of
right?
these trips.
It's full.
So, and they got to take and raise all the monies. Most of the others have some that they can even seed with to get started. So.
Well, I think plan a year ahead of time is pretty good.
Yeah. The next item is out-of-state travel for George Ranch High School and their debate team to attend the National Speech and Debate Tournament in Florida. Next item is to ask the board to approve out-of-state travel for the district math finalists for National Math Club competition in Chicago. The next item is a memorandum of understanding for operations of our alternative school, JJAEP.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On page 30, I think it says, as far as records, I'll get to it in a second. On page 30, where it's talking about the criminal history, am I reading it correct, where it says 2, at the end of one calendar year, the records are destroyed by the school officials?
Yes, they are not retained. When it's entered into PEIMS, the student's ID number is an ID number into PEIMS that this type of offense occurred within the school district. But as far as a record with the student's information, specific information, that is not kept.
Okay. I was reading through this, and with everything that's been going on, and I was wondering if we have any students that perhaps need to be followed or do have mental issues or anything that would be referenced to their record. This will not be in there, correct?
We, as administrators, and it's controlled access, let's say the following school year, the student returned from JJAEP and was remanded and was eligible to start at their home campus the following year, we would be able, our student management system, be able to request permission to see the previous year, and certain campus principals do have access. We would be able to see what occurred previous years in their discipline history, but that is never released. It's confidential.
Right,
Yeah.
but they're not forgotten.
No, we have access to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next item is consider approval of agreement for educational service systems between Lamar and Fort Bend County Juvenile Detention Center.
I have a question about that also.
Yes, ma'am.
And I apologize, I know we were trying to get out of here early, but I had a chance to read a lot of this.
Got all evening.
Got all evening. It said that there's approximately over 400 students that were detained this year, and I was reading there were 5 teachers. Can you explain how that system works as far as their education?
For the students that are detained in JDC, those are the students that if they're detained, they could have been arrested anywhere in Fort Bend County. It's not, they're not all on our campuses, but Fort Bend County is elected to house them as well. until they're released. Generally, it's a very short amount of time. It's 10, 15 days until they can be placed at JJ or ALC or return to their home campus. Lamar CISD educates those kids at JDC while they're there. And so we have staff there, and it's very short term most of the time. But also we take the kids in Fort Bend County that attend Fort Bend ISD and some of the Katy schools that are in Fort Bend County. When their students are remanded to JDC, Lamar CISD is responsible for them as well. And we coordinate their services.
Okay. And then I had another question about the special ed. It seemed like there was a lot of mentioning of special ed students. They are expelled. Well, I have to go back to the first one. In their ARDS and behavior programs, do we have a lot of those that end up in the detention?
Well, if they're special ed and they're detained out in Fort Bend County and remanded to JDC, it's not the school that's placing them there. It is the county that is. To try and expel a student, let's say to JJAEP, that is special ed, that can, you have to go through the ARD. And before you do the ARD, you have what's called a manifestation determination. And that's where we evaluate the behavior that occurred, and we look to see if it's the child's disability that contributed to the behavior that occurred. Many times that is linked. The disability was a reason that poor decision was made. So at that point that determination is made, we cannot expel a child. So there are levels of protection that we, for those children that are maybe impaired, that we do follow very closely. Does a special ed student at times expel the ALC or JJ? Yes, but it's rare.
And do we have a teacher that is there for that if they do go there?
We have special ed certified teachers, yes, and they implement their accommodations.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The next item is consider approval of Advised Texas Partnership Agreement with Texas A&M.
So, was there some talk of that expanding to other schools, or are we just doing that just for Terry right now?
That's the only one that we receive a grant for, and you have to qualify for it with your economically disadvantaged students, and that's the one that A&M, they have several across the state, but Terry's the only one in our district that qualifies for it. But we have these college and career facilitators on every campus.
Absolutely. Because this has been very successful, hasn't it, this agreement?
Well, what this does is provide additional support. So in the case of Terry, they got not only their college career facilitator, but they also have this as well. The next item is consider approval of shared service agreement with Aldine ISD for services to students with dyslexia grant.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is saying if they get the grant. Is that correct? Okay. I'm not familiar with Snap and Read or UPAR. Can you explain? Is that something we have or we don't
No,
have?
that would be granted to us if we were awarded the grant. And that we would find out May 1st if we receive the grant.
Okay. Do we have any type of programs for those that are, you specifically have on here ages 3 through 9, or who are enrolled in 3rd grade or lower? Do we have any programs specifically for dyslexic children at that age that we would want to do this grant?
We have an intervention program, but this specific grant is aimed towards breaking down the barriers for students in the general education classroom. So this would be resources that they could have in the general education classroom.
So
UPAR, co-writer.
what would you do with 3 and 4-year-olds?
We are actually looking at 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. We currently don't have any students in the district identified as dyslexic from 3 to
And that's why
5.
when I saw those ages, I was going,
The grant
3?
does encompass that.
It could.
It could.
Okay.
We were looking at what we had in the district.
first, second, and third grade.
Correct. We did not have any students identified in kindergarten.
Okay, great, thank you.
The next item is approval of proposed dates for regular board meetings. There are a couple of dates that we may come back and ask the board to consider moving if we aren't able to get Holdsworth to make some adjustments. And it is October 18th and February 21st. They're actually working on it now to where they're going to perhaps have those bills in like Houston or the general area where we would not have to miss, be out of town and can't get back for a board meeting. So I wanted to at least put that on your mind as a possibility. And it would be something as simple as going from a Thursday to a Tuesday if that was the board's, if the board was okay with that.
We're flexible, aren't we?
Absolutely.
We know how to rock and roll.
The next item on the agenda is consider ratification of qualifying or quarterly investment reports. Next item is consider approval of budget amendment request.
I have one question, two questions. Purchasing this vehicle for the food service department,
Yes.
is there any other way of being able to purchase that?
I'm hoping that I'll answer the question that you're asking, but
Okay.
the food service department and the or child nutrition fund is its own funding source, and so it's a self-balancing set of accounts. And so those, all their fixed assets, as well as supplies and materials, are bought through that fund.
So transportation is?
Yeah, everything's bought with the food service money.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have another question?
Yes.
All right, lead on.
The portable buildings on page 59,
Kevin?
facilities acquisition and construction, purchase and construction of one portable building and moving 8 portables. Are those going to start including security like we've been talking about for the actual grounds?
I believe they're all equipped with the same type of alarm systems and cameras and things like
Well-
that, right, Kevin?
Will there be anything new that we would need to know about that's been added to this?
As far
The
as
fencing
portables,
and,
no, ma'am, it's, if there's fencing at the at the campuses that they're going to, it will maintain those fencing as well.
what kind of security is in those buildings?
Like Meyer Elementary, that's where some of them are going, Adolphus, I mean, they're all fairly secure sites now.
Okay.
We're pulling portables out of Williams because that enrollment has gone down. And so when those portables leave, we will address the fencing that is vacant there as well.
All right,
Yes, ma'am.
all right, thank you. Okay,
Looks like you had another one. There you go.
I'm going to skip it.
Okay. Feel free to ask.
Okay. Next item is ratification of financial and investment reports. The next item is we're asking the board to approve Post Oak municipal advisors for municipal advisory and continuing disclosure services for a 5-year period beginning April 19th.
I have a couple questions about that. I was just curious, what is the rule? So we RFQ for underwriters, but we don't for financial planners. Why is that?
So I'll talk about the global view of that.
Okay.
That is a professional service,
What
And
is?
so you cannot.
Both are?
Municipal advisory services and underwriting
Okay.
services fall into the category of professional services.
Okay.
You cannot competitively bid those. You can only do, as you said, the request for qualifications.
Right.
And so you evaluate those on their qualification skills, licensure, and stuff like that. So you can do a request for qualifications, but you are not required to by law.
I just remember we did it for underwriters, like.
We have.
Yeah.
We have.
Okay.
They're similar to auditors, independent auditors, so you can, but you do not have to. We met with Hilltop Securities and Post Oak, and after those meetings determined that staying with the personnel with Post Oak would be in the best interest of the district.
And you think there's enough support just with their new program?
Yes.
Does everybody on the board understand what we're doing here?
No,
Okay.
that was
Would
one
you
of my
give
questions.
a little explanation why the change at this point?
Okay, yes. The two individuals that we worked with primarily with Hilltop Securities for financial advisory and municipal advisory services have left that firm and have started their own firm. Their assistance has been impeccable with the district. They've helped us save our taxpayers save over $68 million in refundings. They've guided the district in bond planning, bond election type related services. We have continuing disclosure requirements, so they've assisted us with that. And we've felt very comfortable with their skills and their knowledge and ability to serve the district.
You
And-
all recognize the name Terrell Palmer,
Yeah, that's what I was,
and that's who this is.
just a change in name.
So it's just
Right.
same people, but a different company
Yes,
that he started.
yes.
And so those two people, they basically, they're the two that have handled our district's
Yes.
account or whatever for all
Yes.
that time. And are there other services at these companies, like attorneys or this or that, I mean, I don't know how all this.
We have bond counsel that we work with also. You're probably familiar with Jonathan Farrell's.
Yeah.
And they're still our bond counsel. There are firms like Hilltop sometimes run investment pools as well as do underwriting services and municipal advisory services. And sometimes they flip-flop between the two. And so we also felt like this was an independent type service arrangement as well, because they're not going to do underwriting services in their new firm. So we felt like they were more focused also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is asking the board to approve the purchase of up to 8 fully equipped police vehicles.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How many are considered obsolete right now? Or how many will that be replacing?
I'm sorry.
I think we're, go ahead.
We will be, this item will be replacing up to 8. It'll be replacing actually 2.
Okay.
Four of the 8. Hold on, let me get my list. We're going to be replacing 2 vehicles with general fund money and 2 vehicles with bond.
Yeah, there's actually 10
The-
cars total that will be purchased.
That's
We got
Okay.
8 we're approving here because you have 2 cars already in general fund.
Yes.
Out of those 4 cars are the crappy car replacements.
Yes.
Okay.
The other
Yes.
6 cars are for the potential police officers that we're talking about hiring
Yes.
in the future.
Exactly.
So
Did I get that right?
You did,
All right.
exactly.
There's 4 cars there for the new,
4 cars now.
yeah, available for the new ones if we hire new
And
officers?
6 cars, 6 for the 6 additional officers when we get to that point.
Okay.
Yeah, this will take care
Up
of
to-
everything. We won't have to come back and replace any cars in the.
Right.
This is updating the entire fleet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
they have moved to Tahoes. Pretty much every agency I know that I talked to have moved to Tahoes because the Chargers, being the unibodies, have a tendency to start coming unwound, and they've got really high maintenance problems on those. And they actually get more years out of the Tahoes than they forecast. So they forecast for 10 years, and I talked to RPD, and they said they're getting actually 12, 13, 14
Wow.
years out of those cars. So, yeah, that's the advantage of having the vehicles on a frame instead of the unibodies. So,
After this, the oldest car we'll have is a 2012.
Will be what?
2012.
2012.
Okay.
There are several 2013s, a 2014, and 3 2016s.
So they're spaced out.
Yes.
They're not all at once.
So this will be the big chunk.
all right, thank you.
And speaking of independent auditors, we ask the board to consider approval of the engagement of Whitney Penn as our independent auditor. Next item, we're asking that the board approve, consider approval of the instructional materials allotment and text certification for the 2018-19 school year. We ask the board to approve the resolutions for paraprofessionals, School Nurses Week, and Teacher Appreciation Week. The next item is on page 28, that the board approve engineered air balance for the HVAC test at Culver Elementary School. The next item, we're asking that the Board of Trustees approve engineering air balance for HVAC tests at Fulshire High School shell space. The next item, we're asking the board to approve engineered air balance for HVAC test and balance services at Roberts Middle School. The next item, we're asking that the board approve Dramala Construction Company for the construction of Roberts Middle School.
Sure glad to see all these bidders on these, too.
The next item, we're asking the board to approve Terracon for materials testing for Roberts Middle School. The next item, we're asking the board to approve micro-integrations video services for surveillance cameras, at Carter, Culver, Roberts Middle School, maintenance and operations, support services, and the natatoriums at Foster, Fulshire, and George Ranch.
I have a question. It said that we have a video surveillance policy. It's stated in here. Do we have one as such?
I don't know that we have a policy, but it's more the practice of what the district is using.
It's the guidelines?
Yeah, design guidelines we
Like
have.
guidelines?
But
Okay.
it evolves, so I don't know that it's written down as a policy, so.
This is not a policy of who to watch and.
Me off for
Gotcha,
a
sorry.
second there. Do the police department or anything have anything to do with this when the cameras are set up? Are they involved in this?
Okay.
We do invite the police department, Lieutenant Segura, and some of those guys when we are in design mode.
Okay,
so that they can sit down with us and start looking at locations in the new facility, yes.
so whatever they've experienced at the old campuses, they're able to have their input to y'all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The next item is asking the board to approve Beings Professional for the roof replacement at Sedin Elementary and Austin Elementary.
I have, the only question I have, and I think I addressed that at the committee meeting, was just the request for the last year, 5 years
No, yes,
on
ma'am.
both schools.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
We ask the board to delegate final authority to the superintendent to employ contractual employees for the month of May, June, July, and August. We'll actually come to the board in May with any recommendations, but May is early this year. So we're trying to be in a position to try to address those right after May.
Yeah, we did the same thing last year to enable Dr. Randall to act on these things so we don't lose people because we're sitting over here on our hands, so.
And we do appreciate it.
It's a jungle out there. You got.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that jungle starts on Saturday when we start with our career fair.
Before we get the information items, do we have any audience patrons on the action items?
There are none, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
The first item is update on the MOU that we have with TSTC. The next one, you will get a report on Thursday.
I was going to ask one thing about the TSCC. So are we actually, so I noticed there's, like some sign stuff from campuses and all that. Are we doing anything different, or we're just updating?
We're Leslie, I'll let you speak to it.
We already work with them.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
And the only difference on this MOU is that we are adding additional certifications. They have 7 available certifications, and we're now working to bring all of them online.
Okay. And then we're adding like classes earlier now even?
Yes.
Recently, or-
Students in year 3 courses could attend TSTC.
Yeah. This has been a really, really good
yeah.
deal for our kids.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, do we have any kind of a record of how many of those students have gone through this and continued on with TSTC?
Yes, we do. We do track them. We track them through graduation, how many attend. And most of the certifications, if we can get them in, and we're structuring it this way, our endorsement House Bill 5 students, this senior class is really our first class that has been 4 years of House Bill 5. So our numbers are only going to get bigger, but we will track them post-secondary because the majority of the certifications through TSTC, they should have their cert by August after they graduate. They will have to take additional summer courses, which we support them in their enrollment and continue pursuing that.
And you probably also remember that TSTC does not get paid until they go to work.
Yeah.
They actually have a job, so that has a way of us being able to track what our kids are doing. You'll get a report on the A through F accountability system on Thursday.
And since that's based on STAR, I'll have my own presentation after helping my granddaughter with the math STAR test.
The tax collection report. Payment for construction projects. Available funds. Transportation update. Our medical plan. And the changes associated with restructuring. And then our strategic planning process. This is letting the board be aware that Holsworth has provided a proposed plan, and if the board is interested in continuing with that conversation, they'll come back with the finalized plan with timelines for the strategic planning process and assisting the district.
I really like their approach they
Yeah.
presented us.
I really like this plan. It says exactly what we need and exactly what we don't to be dealt with. So you don't get bogged down.
And those are all the information items, Mr. President.
Thank you. I don't know if we've got any closed session items tonight. Board have anything else? If not, 7 o'clock.